Good evening and welcome to the Williamson County School Board meeting for March 30th. This is our virtual meeting. We have our board members at home with their computers, and we're on a Zoom program here. And so we're going to, first thing we're going to do is record the attendance, and Rebecca is going to call everybody's name out individually. And if you'd answer that you're present, please do so. And if you're not here, don't bother answering. Rebecca?
Okay. Angela Durham.
Here.
Dan Cash. Dan Cash.
Present.
Dan, can you hear me? Dan Cash.
Present.
Elliot Mitchell.
Here.
Brad Fiska.
Here.
Gary Anderson.
Here.
Jack Galbraith.
Present.
Sheila Cleveland.
Present.
Sandy Emerson.
Present.
Rick Wimberly.
Here.
Eric Welch.
Here.
Casey Hall.
Here.
Nancy Garrett.
Here.
Okay.
Did you get me, Dan Cash? I didn't hear.
Yes, Dan.
Yes, sir. We got you.
We got you, Dan. All right, the next thing we'll do is our Pledge of Allegiance. We have an
Okay.
American flag back here, and then a moment of silence, and Jason and I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Justice for all. Now our moment of silence. Thank you. Board members, the Williamson County School Board is meeting electronically because it is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. We have two items in keeping with this. The first one is Williamson County School Board meeting held pursuant to Executive Order number 16, signed by Governor Bill Lee. We need a motion on that and take a vote to make sure everyone's fine with us meeting this way. Anyone like to make a motion?
Motion.
They had Nancy Garrett's hand up.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Anderson. I make a motion that the Williamson County School Board is meeting electronically because it's necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in the light of the coronavirus issue.
Thank you. Anyone like to second that motion? Let's see.
Second.
Mr. Mitchell, second.
Yes, I second Nancy's motion.
All right, thank you.
May I have a point of order, please?
Yes, sir.
Can we, when we're done with this particular motion, maybe we need to set some instructions on how we want to make motions and seconds, and I guess obviously just request for comment going forward.
Yes, I think the best way that we can see here is to look at who puts their hand up, and we can see that as the one who wants to make the motion in second. Is there any further comments or discussions on the motion in second?
Point of order, Gary.
Yes, sir.
Can you mute everybody, or everybody mute themselves?
They just muted you. All right, so, and now we need to go and do a roll call vote on this. Ms. Rebecca?
Mr. Chair, if I may, before Rebecca starts speaking, I want to let you all know that when he asks for a roll call vote, everybody will be unmuted. So if you could, to the best of your ability, wait quietly until each one has a chance to speak. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Angela Durham.
Approve, yes.
Dan Cash.
Yes.
Dan Cash.
Dan Answer.
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Sandy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall, Casey Hall,
Yes. Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you, Board. The next item we need to do is a waiver of the Williamson County School Board Policy 1.400, school board meetings and work sessions. Anyone like to make a motion with this one? And I see Ms. Garrett's hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes,
Ms.
thank you,
Garrett.
Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that Williamson County Schools waive School Board Policy 1.400, school board meetings and work sessions. The reasoning for this motion is the executive order from the governor.
Thank you. I have Mr. Hall for a second. Are you seconding this motion?
Second.
All right, any further comments or discussions on this one? Okay, I see none. Then, Rebecca, if you'd please do a roll call vote on this one, please.
Dan Cash. Dan Cash. It says that all the participants.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Andy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. Next item we have is items of particular public interest or public comment. Since we are doing this virtually, we do not have any public comment this evening. And so we'll move on to our next item, which is the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting? Sheila Cleveland, if you'd go ahead, you were the first one to click in.
To approve the agenda as it stands.
Thank you. And Elliot Mitchell, you were second in.
I second Ms. Cleveland's motion.
Thank you. Any discussions or comments? Okay, I see none. If we'd go ahead and do another roll call vote, please.
Angela Durham,
Yes.
Cash, Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad
Yes.
Fiskus,
Yes. Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Andy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is approval of the consent agenda. There's only one item on that this evening. It's the February 17th school board meeting minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion for the approval of the consent agenda? I see Elliot Mitchell. If you,
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
thank you. And Angela Durham is the next.
I second approval of the consent agenda.
Okay. Any further comments or discussions on the consent agenda? Okay, I see none. If we go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Joe Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Andy Emerson, Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
and Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. Our next item is the communications to the board. It's the Superintendents Report. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to let the public know that the board met last Thursday evening, had a pretty detailed discussion in a work session. That work session went about 3 hours long, and that work session, audio and video, is actually recorded and posted on our website. Our board asked me to give a quick synopsis of that, obviously not go through all that detail because there was so much detail discussed, mainly about the coronavirus and our approach to that, including a timeline. But I am going to give you just a couple of minutes of a synopsis of where we are and invite the public to feel free to pull up that meeting, that work session off our website within our board web page if they would like some of the additional detail. So to get us started, I want to let you all know that Williamson County schools are closed through April 24th. TCAP and end of course tests have all been canceled by the state. ACT dates have been pushed back to at least June 13th and perhaps later. Our Commissioner of Education has issued a blanket waiver of school days, notifying all school districts across the state that she will automatically waive these school days missed as a result of the coronavirus. Likewise, our legislature, while it was in session, authorized our State Board of Education to make some substantial modifications to a number of laws governing schools in light of the coronavirus pandemic, which includes discussion of high school credits and graduation requirements, some issues related to teachers and licensure as well. The State Board of Education has a meeting scheduled for April 9th of 2020 to make some decisions on that. So there are some things we know in the context of what's gone on outside of this district, and there's some things that we are waiting on as the state makes a decision. But what is apparent to us is that the plan in Tennessee from a state level is to honor the governor's request that we close and to not extend schools into the summer. I felt like it was important to mention that because there has been some discussion on all sides of that question. The question of what should we close immediately, or should we try to have some school in the summer? And you all know that there's actually an agenda item on the agenda related to that. So as we went through our spring break, we put a learning plan together, knowing that we would be out for an indefinite amount of time. We posted those resources, and parents can find those on ClassLink through our online services. We did that work at both the elementary and secondary level, and that was done by grade level, by both grade level at the elementary and at the secondary level, even course specific, so that every course we have, we put some materials together, some resources for students to look at. We let you know that these were baseline materials, that because we knew that there were many teachers who would not have the ability to produce specific instructional materials, specific resources for students in their classes, that we had teams of teachers get together and put these baseline materials together. We posted those on our website on Thursday, last Thursday, as we're sitting here on Monday. But we also know that many teachers are going to be able to post additional materials on Google Classroom as well. But again, the intent of this was so that there would be a baseline. And I tell you, we looked at those on Thursday. The work our teachers did was incredible at both the elementary and secondary level. The detail involved, the plans, the recommendations for daily work for students was a really heavy lift by what I have said is a really strong team of folks. And I'm very proud of that. Since we met on Thursday, there have been a number of people look at the website. We've even seen some hits from across the country and even some local neighbors of ours to see the materials that we've have. So in addition to those materials that we discussed in detail and actually had a presentation on, we also made sure that our families had access to those materials by hard copy. So I want to give you a little bit of information related to that. Since Thursday, our elementary schools have given out over 9,000 hard copy packets for our parents of elementary school students. Now, to give you some idea of that, we have about 13,500 elementary school students. So a majority of our elementary families have chosen the hard copy version, even though many of them have internet access. And so that's in substantial and stark contrast to what we've received related to our secondary materials. So far, we have had a total of 133 secondary families, that's grades 6 through 12, actually asked for hard copies of our materials. So there's a vast difference between how our elementary families are choosing to look at the material and how our secondary families are choosing to look at the material. Likewise, we made sure that we had a plan to give devices to families who might not have one at home, and I'm talking specifically about Chromebooks. We did a distribution for high school students to come pick up Chromebooks if they didn't have one at home, didn't have a device at home. We had 227 total pickups. Fairly small number given the total number of our students. Today, we did a middle school pickup, and we had 353 families pick up a Chromebook for middle school students. We have a similar schedule for elementary students, families to pick up Chromebooks if they need one, scheduled for this coming Wednesday. And so we'll be very curious to see how that turns out. We also intend, as part of that, to make sure that we make that open once we have this first round, because I think it's possible someone might come and ask for a Chromebook in the interim. But I think what we've seen in this is, number one, the elementary school families have really preferred to get that hard copy because there's so much on the internet with our secondary schools. It seems apparent that the preference is to get online. Now, I will tell you also that's consistent with how we've been teaching these last few years at WCS. Largely speaking, our secondary schools tend to emphasize the Google Classroom. And there's a lot more interaction going on at the secondary level than especially the lower grades at the primary school. So in addition to giving you guys an overview, there's a little bit of extra information that we even didn't have on Thursday. So one of the things we emphasized in our learning plan was for teachers to communicate with parents through the avenues that we have, through Skyward, through email, through Google Classroom, through the telephone, etc. And I mentioned it last week, in just 3 days after I asked our teachers to do that, even though they were officially off work, because we were still using our stockpiled inclement weather days through last Wednesday. Even when they were still off work, our teachers overwhelmed me with a volume of communication they introduced to their parents. In those 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we had over 500,000 email communications to and from our parents after we made sure that we invited teachers to do that. That's so encouraging to me because it tells me that our teachers really care about our students, really care about that communication. And we've also asked our teachers to communicate by email at least daily. Check their email at least daily. Be a resource to their students as they're looking at these materials that we've placed online. Recommend materials to particular students. assist students when there's questions related to them, to those materials when a question comes up. We've asked teachers to do regular updates for their children. We've asked special ed teachers to check on accessibility, check on every student who they're taking care of, speak to the family members related to that. And that's a very short synopsis of all that detail we talked about last Thursday about our process. In addition to that, we have some plans to continue some of this work. The elementary team is finishing up the work that they started. There's a small amount of this school year that still is up for some of the materials that so many of our parents have. Likewise, we've asked the secondary to continue the work they're doing. Every class is a little bit different. Every class at the secondary level has a minimum 2 weeks worth of materials online right now, but the teams that have worked on that are continuing to work to make sure that we have those materials through the end of this school year. Now, again, that's a baseline. And remember, we've invited teachers to add to that in their Google Classroom. And often families are going to see that their particular teachers are going to suggest something that may be related to what the teacher knows about a particular student and the work they can do. One of the things that we emphasized on Thursday is we've made the decision that we are not going to require any student turn in the work. We're not going to require that the grades be recorded. We're not going to require that we take attendance. And we walked through all the details of our reasoning on that in that long meeting we had in our work session. So in deference to what I mentioned earlier, I want to make sure that folks know that they can go back and work through that discussion. We're also going to include some information, if we haven't already, on our FAQs related to that, because I know that for you as board members, that question has come up a lot. But as we spent all that time talking on Thursday, one theme came out from you all as board members. And I appreciate the engagement we've had over these last few weeks during those days we were closed, during the spring break time, and into last week when we had our work session. And the theme I got from so many of you was that you really wanted a more personal touch, that it was important to you that our teachers have that personal connection with families as their children are stuck at home, honoring the governor's and the CDC's request that we respect that social distancing. So after that Thursday meeting, we spent some time brainstorming, and I want to give you some updates on where we are related to that. We talked about teachers being able to post videos. About teachers, so the decision we made was that we opened the door for teachers to prepare and post video communications to their students with their principal's review. We've also created some training schedules for our teachers. You may recall that one of the things I talked about was the scope of both teacher training and student comfort in a pure online online status was not something we had trained for. So we have some scheduled trainings for teachers to learn how to do these videos, and those are going to start tomorrow and extend into this week, and we're going to record those and make sure that teachers can follow that. We're also doing some trainings on Google Classroom for those teachers who haven't been aggressively using that asset, so that they can learn how to post things better on that website. At the secondary level especially, we've had a few parents these last couple of days ask for the phone calls that we talked about to be with the students rather than the parents. Not so much at the elementary, right? Because it's fairly common for elementary school teachers to call parents. It's less common at the secondary level. So we've opened the door for that to happen with parents' permission. Parents just send a quick email giving the teacher permission to have that conversation with the students. And we believe that those conversations are going to largely be about some specific questions related to a particular class as the students are going through those incredible online resources that we have. We've also heard from parents and from some of you who've heard from your families asking for some additional navigational information, especially related to the elementary materials. We have posted navigational suggestions for what parents can do on a daily basis on our website and in the hard copy materials they've gotten. But I know that some parents have had some questions about how much should I do on a daily basis. And so our elementary folks are working on that, and we'll make sure that we have some additional communications with our families related to that. You may also have noticed just a few hours before we started our meeting that we've started publishing some MISU videos with a number of folks from the district that are being prepared by our communications department, Carol Birdsong and her wonderful staff. So we're going to have a combination of those communications from the district as a whole, as well as from individual teachers as they work to do that. I do want to let you know that, like we talked about, there's going to be a variance from teacher to teacher because we do have a little over 3,000 teachers. And we also have some variance in a student's ability and skills in accessing that online curriculum. Final thing I wanted to mention about that is we have put a major emphasis on accessibility for students. And it's accessibility for students with disabilities plus accessibility for students who might not have access to internet service. Final thing that we've done with respect to the questions you had from us on Thursday is related to interactive classrooms. Many of you asked questions about interactive classrooms, so I want to tell you where we are with that. I'll let you know that we would brainstorm over that after our Thursday night meeting. And our instructional technology staff has been working hard on that. They've been preparing some recommendations on settings on some of those interactive examples. We've also noticed that nationally, some of those entities have actually sent some information out to schools in response to some of the concerns that we actually shared with you on Thursday. As a quick example, Zoom sent out an email on Friday evening letting schools know that they have changed the default setting in a Zoom conference to only allow the presenter to post materials online. So the discussions that we had with you about our concerns related to some of those online interactive devices and software packages are similar issues that some of these national and international companies have heard as well. So we're working on balancing that need to have student privacy with the value of having live discussions. We are in the process and will be piloting a Zoom process through our IB students this week, and we're going to see how it goes. We believe that with those folks working on it, the plans that our instructional staff has with recommended settings will be able to be vetted through some work with some students. And I mentioned vetting because one of the questions you all asked as well was, do you need a change in the acceptable use agreement to affect this? And my answer to you is no, because the existing AUG allows our instructional technology staff to vet products to make sure that we're still in keeping with the student privacy and the protections that our community has valued for so long. So we're working on that balance. Some other improvements that we're working on since we spoke on Thursday is reading library books and posting some videos related to that. Exploring regular check-in calls from parents, from teachers with parents. And so I felt like it was important to tell you that very quick synopsis of where we've been without spending, a couple of hours on it, but also let you know that your voices as board members have been heard because we know that you were speaking for those families in your district. Now, I also got to tell you, I mentioned at our work session that we are conservative. We are conservative in making sure that we protect our students, but at the same time, this is a very unusual situation. And so we are working through our instructional technology staff, through training of our teachers, to find a way to balance our need to be conservative in protecting our students with making sure that those students know they're loved and making sure that those students have access to their teachers with those resources.
Jason, we have 4 board members who's got questions for you, if you're ready for those.
Yes, sir, I am.
All right, I don't know what board members you can see at home, but what we have is Rick Wimberly, Brad Fiskus, Casey Haw, and then Jay Galbraith. So, Mr. Wimberly, you're up first.
First of all, Mr. Golden, good update. Thank you very much. A lot of progress has been made. But I have to say, when you start talking about 500,000 emails and some of the accessibility things that are going on, I have a little lump in my throat. That's really impressive. You and your team and the teachers really are stepping up without a doubt. Here's the question I have, though. The learning plan and the resources sound good. They sound like they're even getting better every day. But here's the question. Some families will use these resources extensively. Other families, for whatever reason, won't use the resources extensively. Some students will stick to them, others won't. Parents will stick to them, others won't. And I think that's to be expected, and particularly in this environment. So here's the question. How do you assure the ones who use the resources to a great degree that their effort will not be for naught if we don't have school until next fall, which seems like a probability if we aren't going to have school in the summer? And how do you help the parents and the kids and the families who haven't been able to use the resources for whatever reason as extensively, that they won't be behind?
Thank you. Those are very good questions. So to answer your first question about ensuring that that the work is not for naught, one of the things that we focused on is making sure students stay engaged, and that's extremely important. Especially at our elementary levels, there's an emphasis on review as elementary students are building that base so that they can prepare for their future. Teachers use the term spiraling. There is a lot of value, no matter when, no matter how, in that spiraling, which is spend time on the subject matter. And so any time that a student spends on that is valuable. I'm going to mention specifically reading. We've talked about the phrase read, read, read. Any reading an elementary school student does is valuable. The other point of emphasis in the elementary materials is mathematics. And so as anybody who's been through school knows, math builds on itself. So the more a student does, the more adept they are and the more prepared they are for the future related to that. A third big piece of what we have at the elementary level is an arts package, a fine arts package, and that's going to promote the students' enjoyment of those things that you get in school. And so we do emphasize to parents to use those as resources. Now, the opposite of that spectrum is exactly what you pointed out, that if somebody can't or is unable to or doesn't follow up as much, then the question is, how are we going to ensure that we're taking care of them? We know, based on what's happening at the state level, there is going to be a need for some additional spiraling, especially with those elementary standards that were designed to cover these last few weeks of school. And I say the last few weeks of school, but because TCAP was scheduled for the middle of April, that's the state testing, and because of that, our scope and sequence was designed to finish our new material process to the end of April, not to the middle of April, not to the end of May. And so we do intend, and that's part of what we'll be working on this summer, to have some spiraling of those last few standards in the event we are for sure closed for the end of the year. But as I told you all, we're closed through April 24th. So if we're able to go back before then, we will review those elementary standards that we haven't had a chance to touch on in a traditional classroom setting now. And if we can't, then we'll work on that early in the school year with that spiraling process. At the secondary level, a similar issue. That students will have that power to review, but more than that, we put new material out for those secondary students. So they will be able to get those materials with a conversation with their teachers. The teachers will be able to help them on specific issues. But again, we are going to plan for that review. At the highest level of our secondary schools, there are AP classes. The College Board administers the AP test. They have announced that they are only going to test for the first 75% of the material this year nationally. That's another national recognition that this third quarter is not going to be consistently applied across the nation because this COVID virus has had such an impact. And so we're very excited about the possibility for our students taking AP classes with the work our teachers are doing to help doubly prepare those students for that material that we've already gone through. Long answer, but it's a very simple question that really takes a complex answer.
Okay. Anything else, Rick?
No, thank you very much, Jason.
All right. And we have Mr. Fiskus, you're up.
There we go. First of all, I just want to say thank you because I know that I personally have interacted with you and Denise, Dr. Goodwin, over the last few days, just sharing concerns from parents. And just thank you for your responsiveness. Thank you, Dr. Goodwin, for your quick email the other night. I didn't expect you to email me back at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, but you did, and I appreciate that. So I think many of the things that you've talked about, Mr. Golden, in the update will help answer some of those questions that I've been getting even today, this afternoon. The word that I'm hearing from parents that I've shared is that, and maybe you can add some reassurance to them, that they're this sense of overwhelmness. They're overwhelmed by just trying to understand how to engage their child, but also how to do work from home and so on. And I know that's something that you all have talked about. And then the other question that I have, and I hope that's not a surprise, but President Trump today said that till April 30th is following the CDC guidelines of social distancing till April 30th. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. So
thank you. I'll address the last piece first. We have heard that as well. At the same time, our governor's had a press conference. He did not address that at this time. And so we do anticipate, if that's the case, then we may be looking at something longer. No matter what, our plan is is designed to maintain that student engagement, whether we go back on April 24th, April 30th, or don't go back. I mentioned to you all at the work session that after April 24th, we actually officially have 19 more instructional days scheduled in our calendar, but we recognize there's a real possibility that may not happen. My second one, I really would like to ask Ms. Goodwin to address. We've had some really good detailed questions about that, and we agonized over that question. If we give such a good comprehensive package, is a parent going to feel like, oh my, I have to do it all, I have to push? And Denise is a veteran of elementary teaching, a veteran of elementary leadership. She's been a principal. Of course, she is our assistant superintendent for elementary schools. And I just love the gentleness of her approach with families. And so because of that, I'd like to invite her to share her answer to that as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Golden. Thank you, Brad, for your kind words. We have, at the elementary level, Brent, Laura, and I, spoken to the elementary administrators almost every day about the importance of communicating with parents. What we provided for them in terms of resources was activities to keep children engaged. Our parents, like our students, are overachievers. They thought maybe they were supposed to just do it all and have a very succinct schedule for their children. We don't view it that way. And so I keep asking, and I think our administrators are really taking hold of this, to help parents, even if they need to have the teachers come back and say, They gave you a schedule. If that's not good, let me break it down for you as it pertains to your child. Here are the areas of spiral review and resources that I think will help your child specifically. So let's look at it as an individual case by case. Not instructing, but guiding the parents on how to help their kids review the major work of their grade level, how we go back and do the things that will impact, just like Mr. Golden mentioned, their foundational, because everything we do at elementary builds. So I think if we can keep that message out there, a lot of parents are grabbing hold of it and they're doing a much better job of it. So that's on us to keep bringing that to our parents. I don't want parents overwhelmed. Everybody's stressed. We don't want children overwhelmed. They are not sure what's going on in their world as it is. They know they need to be in school. They want to be in school. So we want to take and handhold this from a very individual level with teachers. And our principals are guiding their teachers that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, our next speaker is Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the efforts and the tremendous amount of work that's been done over the last week and prior to that. You know, and Superintendent Golden, you've been exceptionally responsive to the community and what we've passed along as board members. And I want everybody to realize that this is the largest school board in Tennessee. And times like this, that makes a tremendous burden on the superintendent when you have 12 people coming at you with ideas, feedback from the community and all of that. So I know that just being responsive to us, in addition to the many administrators and staff that you are taking care of as well, is greatly appreciated. So I really want to express the appreciation. A couple other things to emphasize from the work session. I think I still appreciate the commitment to a graduation ceremony and keeping that for the seniors, and also to reiterate some of the concerns Mr. Fiskus expressed and Denise addressed, but also Nancy's suggestion from the work session last Thursday about possibly having videos or some other, you know, general walkthroughs. If you address that tonight, I apologize, but something like that to help crack the seal. One of the kind of use case scenarios is thinking about the parent who has kids at every grade level and how they're going to absorb this material and help each of their kids stay engaged, as you said, and successful. So I really appreciate hearing that that's been looked at significantly. And I know we're on a very fast track and we're not where we're going to be, but where we're at right now is really commendable.
Thank you for that. And you're right, Ms. Garrett suggested on Thursday that we take a portion of what our professionals had presented to you and cut and paste that so the parents have that. We are working on that so that families can get a little bit better grasp of how to navigate that, especially at the elementary level. And you mentioned something also that I really didn't emphasize, but this continues to be a work in progress. So many school districts are looking at each other, trying to figure out best practices. We don't have a monopoly on the best ideas, but we do have the ability to learn from each other. And so I do anticipate, especially with y'all's suggestion back on Thursday to make this more personal, that we're going to continue to grow and improve on this. One of the things I mentioned is we dropped 100% online on everybody at the same time with no training. And so that is something that will continue to evolve. And I think ultimately we're going to be better for it. We're going to, no matter what we choose, there will be some folks who would have preferred something a little bit different. But we've made that decision based on the balance of everything to get it started this way, knowing that we'll have the ability to improve as we progress.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Galbraith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, all your staff and teachers, thank you for all the work that you've done, both this week and or last week, and then just in the time between our board meeting on Thursday night and tonight. For allowing working on allowing for teachers to make video instruction, just kind of responding to the board in that way. And I look forward to hopefully Zoom being rolled out to the larger audience of students. So I think that'll be a great help. And I just wanted to add from a parent's perspective, I got emails from, I believe, all of our teachers between Friday and Monday with specific instruction for each class, not, I guess, direction on how to use the resources. So they had sequenced them. The kids aren't used to, and the parents aren't used to seeing things in the scope and sequence type format. They're used to seeing things, what do I need to do Monday and Tuesday? So breaking it, and teachers are used to that transition. So I think that'll be a big, that was a really big help in making that big mound of resources manageable for a student and a parent. So quick question, I just have two tonight. Is there a breakdown of students who requested packets? So I'm just wondering if it's more so the younger K2 grades versus 3 to 5, and then are we trying to figure out if there's a correlation between those who don't have internet access, and are we trying to figure out which students still need that access, if that's possible?
Thank you. I'll let Ms. Goodwin add to this after I answer. We have about 13,500 elementary students, and about 9,000 got packets. The bit I heard was it skews a little bit towards the younger grades, but it's fairly widespread. And it may be that part of that is a parent has children at multiple grade levels. And you know, the way we structured that was we had tables outside. Somebody could just run up, grab. And so I looked at it by school level, and it was widely comprehensive across all schools. And so I didn't see, at least in that implied data, any indication it's related to a particular rural area versus a suburban area, where a rural area might not have as easy an access to a Wi-Fi, or they might have a Wi-Fi provider that might have slower bandwidth. I didn't see any relationship there, but Ms. Goodwin can speak to some of that detail. Was there any difference in those? We have a couple of pilot one-to-one schools. Just interested if it was slightly less in those. I did not see that. I will tell you, we have and that's a 5th grade at both Lipscomb Elementary and College Grove Elementary. I did not see the data on that. It's possible Ms. Goodwin got that because we did have different copies of packets. So I'll let her answer that specific question, but I want to make sure the board knows and the community knows that we were piloting one-to-one at 5th grade in those 2 schools, but the students actually didn't take their device home with them. It was just that they were assigned one to physically carry from class to class. And so Ms. Goodwin can give you some detail if she has that, because I don't.
Thank you, Superintendent Golden. Mr. Galbraith, we did not break it down by grade level. I can go back and get you some information on that. When I looked at the numbers, I didn't see a big disparity between Lipscomb's numbers that were picked up as packets and anyone else. The larger elementary schools, of course, had the majority of their packets in numbers. It did lean, just from talking with principals, toward the primary grades, and that's because that's how they do the bulk of their work anyway, is hard copy. The kindergartners can get on iPads. 1st and 2nd grades, they do a little bit of work on Chromebooks. The majority of the Chromebook work is at 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But again, pretty well across the board, parents preferred, if I read this right, hard copies of what we sent out. But if you'd like, I can go and ask them to break it down by grade level. Happy to do that.
it's not a big deal. Thank you.
Mr. Galbraith, if I may, I do have a little bit of middle school data that might put a little bit of some answer to your question. Brentwood Middle School had 3 hard copy packets, and they are a true one-to-one pilot.
Gotcha. Thank you. And just one last thing. I know I spoke to this on Thursday, but I'd like to talk about this as a topic of conversation at our next work session. But I just want to understand what we're doing in the next month or two while we still have all of our teachers. I just want to make sure that we're putting together a plan to be able to prepare for the fall and beyond, so that we have all of our instructional materials in this format, but that I still want to see us be able to take that next step and provide instruction. So whatever it takes so I just want to have a good, robust conversation with the board about this. And, we didn't really have a conversation about whether or not we were going to shut down completely or to go to this online resources. But I just want to be out ahead of it, because given there's lots of projections out there of what the fall is going to look like. Nobody really knows. But it's a very real possibility that we spend some amount of time in the next school year at home. And I want to make sure that it's a seamless transition between home and school, and we don't have to shut down for any number of days.
That's a really good suggestion. And we did talk about this real briefly on Thursday. At the elementary level, they are working these next few weeks on completing that year's worth of package. Obviously, there'll be some need from time to time to update that. At the secondary level, it's a much heavier lift. And those of you who've gotten into the secondary materials can see that, because we have around 200 different courses. And so we agree that there's a lot of value in us having a plan and a program to have these materials as a baseline at all grade levels to prepare for this eventuality, right? Across the nation and really across the world, this is new territory for just about everybody. Different districts are at different places on the continuum of online classes, no matter what terminology you use. And there are some states way ahead of Tennessee on online curriculum. But one piece of good I see coming out of this is that if we continue that effort, we're going to be able to have some materials that really do give us that baseline without much more than continued updating. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Mitchell, and then after him we have Ms. Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Golden, I echo my colleagues. I think it's the work that your staff has done is really awesome, and they should all be commended for their dedication to the children in their care. You don't have to reply to any of these comments. It's just suggestions for the most part from me. I do think it's important that we devise a way for public comment for our online meetings. We need to, I feel like we need to have feedback coming back to us, and public comment in our meetings is recorded, and we need to figure out that, whether it's put it in paper and submit it or something or another. I got online today to try to go look at the online material, thinking that I would hack my way through it, and then remembered that what you had said, it was access login only. Can the board members get logins to that material so we can be able to see its ease of use or what our constituents are talking about?
Absolutely. We'll make sure we do that. And just FYI, some of the elementary materials are actually available straight from the website, but there's other materials that still have copyrights that we have to keep available in ClassLink. I felt like it's important to mention that, but absolutely we can give the board members that same access that parents have.
Okay, I didn't find the stuff that was directly that was general access, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking. From a parent standpoint, I think you talked about doing an instructional video for parents. I think I would suggest that maybe do a Facebook Live video for parents to walk them through, maybe one per grade, not necessarily grade level, but secondary versus elementary, maybe, because there would be different needs per teacher. You know, maybe at the individual school levels, the grades, maybe Zoom classes for parents that are interested on it, you know, kind of at night, have and make it invitation, obviously invitation only. You could talk about it, but let's give some resources to give some continuing education to our parents in using this online stuff. And again, I'm looking, I think that my anecdotal evidence based on emails to us seems to imply that we've calmed it down a little bit by putting the curriculum out there. I haven't seen as much emails from parents, at least coming to the whole board. But I do think it's all about, we need to continue to seek feedback from our parents, since they're the ones that are being expected to manage this process, and so we can continue have a constant effort to refine and improve what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Chair, if I may mention one thing, the governor's executive order that's opened up the door for us to have this meeting ends on May 18th, for your information.
Okay. Our next speaker is Ms. Garrett.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson. Just real briefly, one of the things I've noticed is that from parents I've talked to today and Friday, they were not aware that the course-specific resources were out there. And this is a very fast-moving situation. And because of the particulars of the situation, I think that we just cannot over-communicate. So I wonder if it's worth having some follow-ups from principals. And granted, at the high school level, some of those emails might be going directly to students, and that has seemed to be the case. And the reason why parents didn't understand that the course-specific resources were out there. But I just wanted to emphasize that those communications are so important. I also wanted to say, and I spoke about this at the work session, that this has been a great time to pick up the phone and call people. Today I had a conversation with someone who had written me for my district, and we both sat on our computers and looked at those resources that were available. And she was thinking that it was just the resources that were provided, the general resources that were provided over spring break. But then when she saw that there were course-specific resources, she felt much better about what was out there for her student, and that her student could proceed with the learning that she hoped the student would take advantage of. So I want to say I appreciate everyone who gets in touch with us about this, and this is truly a way that we can help people get to the information that they need.
Thank you for that, thank you for that, Ms. Garrett. You know, one of the things we've known before now, but it's just been reemphasized, is different people communicate in different ways. And so I think there is some value in not only repeating the message, but in communicating it in different venues using different media for that very reason. Within a couple of hours of us originally posting this material on Thursday, we had over 40,000 hits on the material. But obviously that not everybody got that message at the very first time. So thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you. Mr. Golden, do you have anything else in your report?
No, sir, I do not, other than to say thank you again to our teachers and the commitment they have to our families. Thank you to the families. We have so many great parents who love their children, and we want to be that part of helping you raise your children in general, but especially in this time We want to make sure that we're as good and as valuable and as robust a resource for you as we can be. So continue to communicate with us, communicate with your teachers and your principals, and thank you for letting us serve your children.
Thank you, sir. The next item is the board chairman's report. I want to thank everybody for their patience through all of this. The staff has done a wonderful job, as everyone has pointed out, but the patience of the parents, the students, the teachers, administration has been really good. And I appreciate it very much, knowing what everyone has to go through at this time. So the only other thing I want to say is stay safe, and hopefully this will be over with in a shorter time than everyone thinks, and we can get back to the business of how we normally like to run our school district. If anyone have any questions for me? All right, thank you. The next thing is the unfinished business. We do not have any unfinished business, so we go right into new business. And the first item is the 2019-2020 school board budget, general purpose school fund budget amendment. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This particular item on the agenda is moving some donated funds to the appropriate line based upon the feedback our CFO, Leslie Holman, has received from the state regarding our accounting processes. So we recommend approval.
Anyone like to make a motion on this first item? I see Mr. Mitchell with a motion, and Mr. Wimberly was the next one.
Yeah, I move to approve the item that's currently on the table.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, I see none. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Angela Durham,
Yes.
Dan Cash, Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Yeah.
Brad Biscuit,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you, board. Our next item is the 2020-2021 high school courses. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You all had a memo. We discussed it Thursday for your annual approval of high school courses. So we ask for your approval.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? Ms. Durham?
I move to approve the high school courses for 2021.
Thank you. Mr. Haw?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Okay, I see none. So, Rebecca, go ahead and do the roll call, please.
Angela Durham,
Yes.
Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad Biscuit,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
and Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you, board. Our next item is the 2020-2021 special course applications. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the annual list of special courses that we are asking the board to adopt so that we can submit that to the State of Education, to the Tennessee Department of Education. Thank you. Recommend approval.
Thank you. Anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion from Ms. Cleveland and then Mr. Fiskus. Ms. Cleveland?
Is it? Oh, now I'm unmuted. Okay. I make a motion to approve the special course applications as presented.
Thank you. Mr. Fiskus, you were next.
And I second.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Okay, I see none. And Ms. Megan, would you please call the roll?
Angela Durham,
Yes.
Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett,
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. Our next item is the Textbook Adoption Committee recommendations. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the time of not just year, but every 6 years where we make a request for you to approve the English Language Arts textbook adoption. Likewise, we have some additional textbooks that we're requesting you to approve as well in criminal justice, journalism, and culinary arts. We've had some discussion at the board work session based upon the materials presented to you and the information related to the teacher selection. We do recommend approval.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion on this one. I see Mr. Wimberly.
Yes, move to approve.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell, you're next.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone have any further comments, questions, or discussions? Okay, I see none. If we could do a roll call vote, please.
Angela Durham,
Yes.
Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you, board. We're now into board policies on first reading. The first one is 3.405, commercial advertising on Williamson County school buses. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is first reading, so this policy will go back to the policy committee for second reading. This includes some work from Ms. Osbrooks, our general counsel, to add some additional language related to buses to make sure that the advertising that we approve is consistent with the standards in the state. We recommend approval.
Okay, first name was Mr. Wimberly.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Then Mr. Cash, you were next. Mr. Cash, would you like to second this motion?
Yeah. Yes, I would.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, did you want to discuss this one now that we have a motion and a second?
No, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave my hand up. I apologize.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second on this first one on commercial advertising on buses. I see no further discussion. If we go ahead and do a roll call, please.
And Angela Durham,
Yes.
Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Yes.
Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett,
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. We're on the next one, 4.302 field trips. Mr. Golden?
If I may, Mr. Chair, is it public records request?
I'm sorry, did I miss that one? The 3.604, the public records request policy. Sorry, Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a first reading on some proposed changes to the public records request policy to reflect some guidance from the State Office of Open Records. Recommend approval.
Anyone like to make a motion on this first reading? Ms. Garrett?
I make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Ms. Durham, you were the next one in.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. And Mr. Welch, did you want to speak to it?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. No further comments or questions. If we'll do the roll call vote, please.
Angela Durham,
Approve?
Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Yes.
and
Yes.
Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. Next policy on first reading is 4.302 field trips. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a change and actually in addition to the field trip policy to address specifically independently planned field trips. The traditional example might be a French teacher who might take students to France and on a private trip that's not WCS. Recommend approval for first reading.
Anyone like to make a motion on this first reading on this policy? Mr. Fiskus.
I move to approve.
Thank you. Ms. Durham.
I second.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, I see none. We have a motion and a second. If we do the roll call, please.
Angela Durham,
Yes.
Dan Cash, Dan
Yes.
Cash, Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Brad
Yes.
Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes, yes, yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. We're on the next new business item, and it is waiver of the 2019-2020 instructional days. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I let the board know the basics of where the state was earlier as I gave you my superintendent's report. This particular request is my requesting your approval of our submitting the missed days after our 10 inclement weather days have been consumed as waived days per the state direction. I will tell you that there's been some discussion on all potential probabilities, but my conclusion, based both on what's appropriate for our community and what the state has done, is that it's most appropriate for us to close out this school year on the regular calendar, knowing that we've missed some days and have the potential to miss others, rather than forcing us to go into the summer without knowing at this point when we will be able to return. So based on that, I do recommend that the board approve our waiving the missed instructional days for the 2019-20 calendar year that exceed our 10 stockpile days.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. I see for a motion, Mr. Hall,
Motion to approve.
Mr. Fiskus.
Second to approve.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Mr. Hall, did you want to speak or did you?
No, it was me.
No thank.
Okay. Mr. Galbraith, did you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
So with regard to this, is this a blanket approval for the remainder of the school year, or will we have to vote again if we go past the April 24th deadline?
That's a great question. The structure of this would allow you to approve it even through the end of the school year if, in fact, we end up having to close beyond April 24th.
And are we still leaving open the possibility that we can continue to evaluate the manner in which we give instruction, and so there may be some instruction at some point during the rest of the year, maybe not before April 24th, but maybe after?
Yes, sir. I'm still holding out that possibility. I think we're still very close to a month out from that deadline. I have had some folks say, hey, we wish you'd just close school for the rest of the year so that we can do some planning for our family. But because there's still that possibility, as we sit here on March 30th, I'm not prepared to make that decision that we need to be closed for the remainder of the school year, because we're still dependent on the health professionals and the recommendations they make.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Can we have a roll call vote then, please?
Angela Durham,
Yes.
Dan Cash,
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell,
Yes.
Elliot votes yes.
Elliot, yeah, okay, thank you. Brad Fiskus,
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Galbraith,
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland,
Yes.
Candy Emerson,
Yes.
Rick Wimberly,
Yes.
Eric Welch,
Yes.
Casey Hall,
Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
12 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. This has been a experience. First time we've done an official board meeting with votes. Thank you all very much for the way it was conducted and the way it came about. Mr. Golden, do you have any final words for this meeting?
Well, you mentioned experience, Mr. Chair, and I had an old teacher who said an experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. But that popped into my head when you said experience. But I will tell you that I think it's important for this community to know how engaged our board has been in this. It's really been a wonderful experience in our relationship. We've turned some corners, but y'all, we still have some corners to go. This is not something that's done. We're going to continue to work. This is new to so many of us across the world. And I am convinced that as painful and as hard as this process has been, if we focus on the main thing, which is public safety, and then we as a school district and our families focus on within that commitment to public safety to keep our students engaged, long term, we're going to be better off for it. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate your constructive criticism, and I appreciate the way we've all interacted as a community. And thank you all for your leadership.
And thank you, board. I'd like to end this meeting by saying thank you for coming on the way we did, the way we went through this whole process. And I'd like to thank the technology team for putting this all together. It's just been great. So this meeting is adjourned.